Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Old Big Ears podcast. I'm your co-host, Dimitri Geisler, and of course, today I'm joined with my mate Stefano Michelli. But because we're in a really good stage in the Champions League, we just finished the knockout playoff rounds, and yeah, the games are getting more intense. There's a lot of crazy drama that's happening. We decided to bring on some special guests to add some banter to the podcast. So lo and behold, we have Tristan, who is a diehard Real Madrid fan, Madrista, and Daniel. Of course, you got to have the Barcelona fan as well to add some tension. Just feel free to introduce yourself. So Tristan, just explain just for some icebreaker activities. I was just usually asked this to guests. So basically, when did you start supporting Real Madrid, and what was your favorite moment of Real Madrid in Champions League? And you had to be like a fan of them when you saw that moment. So it can't be like a moment like in the 90s when Madrid won the Champions League. And yeah, same as you, Daniel. So I guess Tristan, go first.
Okay, sure. So the first question, which one was it again? It was when did you start?
Yeah, when did you start supporting Real Madrid and why? Yeah.
So I'd say two reasons. I remember, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but it was there's like the Goal movie series based on Santiago Munoz. And so it's the second one. He makes his move from Newcastle to Real Madrid. So that was kind of like my first introduction to Real Madrid. I also was just a big fan of watching, because I watched like a lot when I was younger, like Premier League games back in the day, but I was always like a huge fan of Bale. And so it was like when he kind of like moved over to Real Madrid, that's when I like really started following a team, because prior to that, it was more just like generally watching whatever was on the screen. Favorite memory
of Real Madrid
in the Champions League. Yeah, there's a lot to choose from, but I would probably say, I was talking to Daniel about like different headers in Champions League finals, but I'd probably say the Ramos header. Put the game into extra time.
Yeah, and then helped you win La Decima. So
exactly.
Yeah, that was a really big one. Yeah, that's awesome. How about you, Daniel?
So I pretty much started supporting Barcelona when I fell in love with the sport basically because of my older cousin. And
so family ties.
Yeah, he was a Barca fan, so immediately then I was hooked. Every single new kit that came out, I was like in a Barca kit. Just always loved the club. And favorite memories from Barca. Honestly,
Liverpool 2019.
Either the MSN era or beating Real Madrid in the semifinal of the Champions League. That was pretty sick. Like Messi solo goal. But if I had to pick one, it'd probably be like the 2015 season when we won the Champions League.
Oh yeah, treble.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, no, for sure. Especially just like, okay, sorry, Stefano, but the final 3-1 Juventus.
Yeah,
it was MSN.
MSN.
You could absolutely argue it's one of Messi's best seasons. Not the best, right? Yeah. What are we gonna do against that? I mean, even if you have Boofy level, Boofy, in goal, all that. Yeah, it's not gonna stop. MSN.
Yeah,
we know that. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, we already know the story.
Best trio probably of all time.
100%.
Yeah.
Especially with Neymar playing at such a high level, especially in the knockout stages.
That's prime Neymar.
Yeah.
There's no question about that.
Yeah. I agree.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
That was a formidable team. And that was just honestly, that was probably in my opinion, the best attracting TO of all time. I would say my favorite player out of that three was Neymar, just because of Samba football. He just made football such a joy to watch. So those were definitely the days of watching. It was just beautiful.
100%.
Yeah. But before we get into glazing Barcelona too much, we're gonna get into some news. Yeah. So big one, just want to bring up. Fabrizio confirmed today that Pep Guardiola is actually planning to continue and stay at Manchester City, despite all the rumors that he would be leaving at the end of the season, especially given the challenges he's faced. Like, it seemed like kind of suitable thing for him to do, especially since he's won everything at Manchester City. But according to Pep Guardiola, he wants to continue at Man City for sure. That's according to what he said, quote unquote. even after his defeat against Real Madrid, he's willing to roll with the punches and continue to stay with the club. And
roll the dice again. Roll the dice again.
Rolling with the punches. He got 200 million to spend in the transfer window. Not like he's going to have financial flexibility anywhere else. Really,
it's kind of waiting for them. Like, yeah, if you were going to bring something like that up, I would have definitely said that right there. I think everybody who watches the pod knows. Yeah, we're not the biggest Man City fans. And I don't know. Pep is Pep with that. Is it extension or just confirmation that he's going to stay? Right?
Yeah, I definitely think Pep just doesn't want to leave. If he would leave now, he'd be leaving in the worst moment. And
that's right.
Pep, he wouldn't want to do that.
Aware as well. Really.
Yeah. It would make him look bad, I believe, because all the pundits and critics would say, "Oh, he can't weather a storm when the team's doing bad. He can only do well when everything's in place." Unlike other managers like Mourinho, Ancelotti, all the other top managers. So it does make sense. I guess he's trying to prove a point. And for sure. Yeah. And in terms of bouncing back, he's already started a rebuilding process in January, right? And he will continue until the summer. And that's just with all the signings that Man City's made, like Kusanov, and then Marmoush, and then who's the other player that replaced Rodri?
Nico Gonzalez.
Oh, Nico Gonzalez, which people say.
He was not.
The thing is with Nico Gonzalez is people say he's not really a Rodri replacement. It's good enough to replace Rodri. That's at least what people have said. He's not actually I guess you could say a born CDM like Rodri kind of was, right? If that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. Is he going to go with Nico over Rodri in when he does have Rodri available to him? No, I don't think so. I think he's
no way that's happening. It's more just a temporary replacement. You're not going to be able to go and get any cover that void of Rodri, but then even beyond that, I think City's performance both in the Prem and in the Champions League has been unacceptable, even having lost Rodri.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, well, we'll definitely get more into that.
The
rumors good game.
So we're just gonna head right into the analysis of all the games. So first ones we're gonna bring up. This is already a big surprise, but AC Milan versus Feyenoord. So over the two legs before the knockout phase playoffs happened, Stefano and we both did predictions, and we both predicted that AC Milan would go through, but very slightly. We knew that Feyenoord were a very dynamic young team, and they caused some upsets, like, for example, Man City, and they also beat Bayern Munich 3-0. But we just saw AC Milan getting the edge over the two legs, just simply because they have the pedigree of players. A lot of these players were part of the AC Milan squad that made the semifinals 2 seasons ago, and just the history and all that. But definitely, and also especially since AC Milan got Santiago Jimenez from Feyenoord, which is the irony. But over the two legs, it just didn't pan out for AC Milan, and even though Feyenoord were sometimes, there were points where they kind of felt like backstabbed, especially because in the second leg yesterday, Jimenez actually scored in the first minute, extremely early. It's just there's certain players at AC Milan who couldn't keep their heads. I got to mention, Theo Hernandez, who got sent off for simulation, and that ultimately, I believe, cost them. So
it was so careless. Not only when he dove, but I don't have a problem with guys getting carded for diving, especially in super important ties like this. But it'd be nice if it was enforced consistently. But then even the first yellow card he took in that match was just ridiculous, where he's literally at the center of the pitch and he just pulls a player down by his shirt out of frustration. And it's like, if he doesn't have that yellow card in the first place and he gets the second, there would be no first and he wouldn't have been sent off. So to your point, definitely careless.
Yeah, no, for sure. So in my opinion, just Theo Hernandez, should be a player with a lot of experience, right? Of course, World Cup winner with France. He was part of the AC Milan squad that made that semifinal run in 2023. But just in this situation, when you're counting on him, he does a really stupid dive. And at that point, AC Milan were already leading, and it was in the second half, in the 60th something minute. But still, like, they could have held it out with their experience or try to get another goal. He didn't need necessarily to. Then he didn't need it all to do that type of simulation, and he gets sent off because he was already on a yellow. And yeah, I just think he's the reason why essentially AC Milan got eliminated, because after that they were a totally different team, and after that Feyenoord scores 10 minutes later in the 70, I believe it's the 73rd minute. 73rd minute. Yeah. What are your thoughts on it, Tristan and Daniel?
Yeah, I think just like the ripple effect it had, because obviously one of the main things that Teo does is overlap so well. And you look at how that affects guys like Liao, like that makes them a lot more predictable on offense. When you have an overlapping threat, it completely changes the dimension. And yeah, like on form, I have no doubts that Teo is one of the best left backs in all of Europe. He's been very off of form this season, and what he did just, yeah, like you said, really let down his team with those two series of events. 2 yellows, especially the second one. Like, he's got to be doing better.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And then even kind of building off of what you said, in terms of Leao as well, before that, obviously the red card, AC Milan were doing a lot more of the attacking, but even to put some of the onus on Rafael Leao as well, he was so good in chance creation, but there's just no end product with him sometimes, and that absolutely didn't help AC Milan in the side whatsoever.
Yeah. And also just with AC Milan, it is with their loss, I did blame some of the personnel, most notably Teo Hernandez, but also you got to look at the manager, right? Like, when I was looking at the game, why was Fikayo Tomori on the bench? He should have started. I don't know the exact story behind that, but it is a second leg, and they should have an experienced center back to close things out, right? And then,
but does he usually use him though? I don't know. See,
okay, then that's on the manager, because before then Fikayo Tomori was and he won the Serie A with AC Milan. Like, this is bad management. Then
I think it's just he hasn't used him.
You got to put Tomori in the plans.
I've seen him consistently use Tomori in Serie A. Yeah, so
that's,
I don't know, but I do agree with you. Yeah, there should be experienced defenders all across the pitch, I guess you could say, for a given team. In Champions League. Champions League is all about experience. I'll say that like over and over again. It's all about experience. Like, that's why I don't like, sometimes putting an academy player in a Champions League game. And obviously Teo's not an academy player, but there's kind of like there's a point in which, like, experience in Champions League overrules any other experience in games. Let's say Serie A games, for this example here.
In the case of Tomori, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but a bit of a sidebar as well. It seems like he just has managerial issues quite often, especially if you look at Southgate. Obviously, being Canadians, this is a bit of a sidebar, but like, because of how many games he's played with England, right? He can't go and play for Canada, so he's just not playing any international football because of his relationship there. And then, to your point, though, I don't know about the playing time of Tomori enough to determine whether he could have been playing that. But to your point, obviously experience.
But I also believe, Tristan, that you were complaining about how the manager dealt with substitutions as well, right?
Yeah, when you're needing to score a goal, taking off Pulisic, who had been doing a great job in chance creation, and then also Santiago Jimenez, who had scored that goal in the opening minute. It was just to take him off when he's been a lot more clinical, not Morata at AC Milan, who didn't.
Yeah. No, that's for sure. And because of these reasons, ultimately, Feyenoord wins 2-1 on aggregate, winning the first leg 1-0, and then managing to salvage a 1-1 draw with Milan because of the reasons we mentioned. But Feyenoord definitely is a very dynamic young team. They're not a team to be underestimated given their trajectory in the league phase and ultimately now in this knockout phase playoff. and they either get drawn against Inter or Arsenal. That'll be an interesting one.
Yeah,
Of
those are
draws. Yeah, don't underestimate them. But yeah, we'll have our predictions on that. Yeah.
The thing is also with these. Yeah. The thing is also with AC Milan is like, of course, yeah, they only got one goal. Wasn't it? Yeah, it was one goal out of the two games that they played against Spain. So yeah, it's you would probably have to blame the attack more so than the defense in this two-legged these two legs.
Yeah, and also the goal Jimenez got was really fluky.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, that's actually true. Yeah, it's definitely. But I would say, yeah, you have to pin it on. For the most part, you have to pin it on that attack not being that clinical, or just chance creation not being there for AC Milan when they should have it, given their talent. Right?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Well, the next game we're going to talk about is the Benfica versus Monaco game. Honestly, before the knockout phase playoff games even happened, Stefan and I were saying this is one of the most evenly, in terms of teams' abilities, they're very even. And we knew it was going to be exciting. There was going to be a lot of goals because they have attacking prowess, and also the defense on both teams is lacking. But we predicted that Benfica, both of us, that would go through just simply because they have more experienced players, more Champions League experience, and just more experience in playing in very high-level games and high-profile tournaments. Like, for example, Benfica, you have Nicolas Otamendi as centre-back. Then you have Angel Di Maria, although he didn't play in the last game, but Otamendi played. And also with Benfica, you just have really good players who are in great form right now, like Pavlidis, for example. We knew he would be a huge influence in this game. And yeah, all I can say is after the game, Pavlidis, in terms of stats, he has 7 goals in 6 games. And yeah, he only scored the only goal for Benfica in the first leg of the knockout phase playoff, where Benfica won 1-0 again. And he was huge in this game and scored a goal as well. Di Maria was left out with a thigh injury still, but it was just great back and forth football from both teams. And at the end of the day, yeah, I would just say Benfica's experience carried them through. Do you have anything to say, Stefano? And then we'll get to you, Tristan.
I think.
And Daniel.
Yeah, I think.
Daniel can speak to Benfica, Monaco. Always.
Yeah, for sure.
With regards to Benfica though too, is also like the passion. Like having a team that's like that passionate on the field to always win the ball back or always try to get a goal back. That's super hard to go against that type of team. And I don't care if you're a bigger team or not. Like that's always gonna be a super hard victory, a hard fought victory if you're the other team going against Benfica. I mean, yeah, obviously Monaco's also have this mentality too, but Benfica's just on a whole different level. You can just see like every chance they get, they go to the fans or whatever, cheer them up. Like they just have like this amazing energy that's makes the other team kind of, let's just say, demoralized, to not, like, because they have the other their fans on their side, like, and that's not like good if you're opposing, team, if the Benfica fans are chirping you or whatever, right? So
for sure,
basically, yeah, Benfica just have the better, I guess you could say, mentality in this matchup, and I think that's mainly why they were able to hold on to a victory here.
For sure. But Daniel, you had something to say about Monaco, right?
Yeah, also, I just think that they started off the season really well. Like, I think even though it's the League One and it's not the strongest league, they were still unbeaten for several months. And they actually, the first game of the Champions League, obviously, Ter Stegen played that, made that catastrophic mistake.
Yeah.
And we were down 10 men, but they still beat Barca in the opening game 2-1, and they started the season super well, but recently they've fallen off, especially in the league even. They lost to PSG quite handedly, and then they lost a couple of other Champions League games, and yeah, their form just has kind of gone down the drain. Definitely not the same team to start the season, and yeah, I definitely think Benfica have the better players. I mean, Antonio Silva a couple of years ago so many big teams in Europe wanted him. He was one of the most touted young center backs in Europe, pairing him with Otamendi, who's a really experienced center back, but it was definitely goals galore. I mean, even when they played us, I mean, 9 goals. So you can always count on Benfica to score a lot of goals and also concede some.
Yeah. I have a big question because me and Dimitri, when we were watching the highlights, we kind of questioned, like, is this game would you consider it a schoolyard game? I have to say it. I have to, like, get your guys' opinions.
I'll give my opinion first, then I'll ask you, Tristan. Basically, in my opinion, I think a definition of the schoolyard game in the Champions League this season would be the PSG versus Atletico game. That was just both teams were in horrible form at that time, and defense was horrible. The attacking was really erratic, and it was just back and forth, and there was just a lot of banter between the teams because PSG, they're really like flashy and like pretentious, and then Atletico Madrid, they're really like dirty, right? So it just made for it was like a schoolyard banter game. But yeah, what are your thoughts on? I feel, in my opinion, the Benfica, Monaco, these teams have a bit more class and they were in better form. Although Monaco's form has gone down. What are your thoughts? But it was very back and forth still.
Yeah.
I mean, Atletico, they're definitely, they've got some form absolutely at this point, and they're definitely a dangerous team to watch out for, especially in the Champions League, despite Simeone falling short in the final twice. But going back to Monaco versus Benfica, especially to start the game, Monaco was honestly quite wasteful with a few chances where they could have been a goal or two up to start the game, but then I believe they were the first to concede in that leg, and it was actually 2-0 against Barcelona this season. So to Daniel's point, they started off very well, but the form has teetered off and weren't really able to finish.
Yeah, for sure. Monaco they definitely had instances where they actually hit the post twice. Ben Seguir and Mbolo hitting the post, and also Mbolo, he missed a glorious chance from yards out on the stroke of halftime. So there was multiple chances where he had he contributed well, but he should have gone a goal in my opinion. And at the end of the day, Benfica, when they had their chances, they took them. And that's all I can really say, because Benfica finished with XG of 1.90 to Monaco's 1.26. So they basically were more clinical, and that's why they're going to the next round.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, this game did have obviously tactics and stuff like that, but I don't know. For me, it was, I would say at times it was schoolyard. You kind of have to admit, it was at times it was, and then but for the most part, it was quite tactical. It wasn't just players just running all over the place, like headless chickens or something like that, not knowing where to run or something like that, right?
For sure.
No, for the most part, it was tactical. But I would say when it came to almost close kind of to the ending of the game, definitely got schoolyard for me. Yeah, I don't know. That's how I see it.
It's the nerves and just fatigue.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Well, the next game we're gonna head into, also just another really big upset, is Atalanta versus Club Brugge. Honestly, this one, when we were doing the predictions before the first leg of this knockout phase playoff, Stefan and I both predicted Atalanta should be able to go through. Yes, Club Brugge, they did well against certain teams, most notably tying against Juventus, and they had a pretty good second half of the league phase, and they even caused trouble for Man City. We just thought Atalanta, they were so close to qualifying for the top 8. They're in great form in Serie A. They are always pushing for that top spot still right now, and they just have, in my opinion, the best center attacking player in Europe in Ademola Lookman, who had a great European campaign last season, of course, in the final, and he carried that to the Champions League group stage. But we'll get more into the issues regarding how AC Milan managed Lookman in that game.
Or Atalanta.
Atalanta, my bad. But just bad management all around. Actually, speaking, because I did that blunder, all Italian teams, I think they've just not managed their players too well in this campaign. We'll get more into that with the other games. But yeah with Club Bruges, throughout the whole game, like in the second minute, Club Bruges score right away after evading Atalanta's backline with ease. And they get their goal right away. And they bring the lead to 3-1 on aggregate. And all I can say is Atalanta's back three defense, they're not that good. Steph and I have always talked about Gianpiero Gasparini's tactics. He always wants to bring a high line. He only has three at the back. They always can get caught out by good teams. So I'm assuming because he thought Club Bruges finished at 24th, they were basically the last team before the elimination cutoff. He probably thought, okay, I'm just gonna put a really high line with the back three, focus more on the attack at the goals. But obviously that didn't work. He should have known that after the first leg, where they lost. But yeah, he didn't really take that into account. And it's a bummer though, because I thought that throughout the Champions League, it seemed like Atalanta's defense was getting better, which is good because that's something they always need to work on. But in this game, they were back to square one, especially with the first goal. And then in 26th minute, Club Brugge scoring again with their player Jashari. He was running straight into the Atalanta penalty area. No one was picking him up, and then he just basically makes a shot on goal. There's a bunch of commotion. Goalie makes a save, but it falls to Talby, who strikes the ball in the back of the net. The defense doesn't know what they're doing at the end of the day. That's all I can say. And yeah, Club Brugge have hit the front foot, and you're just making all these attacking plays, and Atalanta don't know how to respond to it, and they probably can't wait till halftime to at least hear some advice from the manager. But they don't. It doesn't really work too much. I mean, at halftime it's already there's already 3 goals going on. But then, to be fair, they do improve in the second half, but it is thanks to them bringing on Lookman, who we'll talk more about this later. I don't know why he came on the field in that moment in time. Maybe it's an injury. You can fill me more.
Was it an injury?
Yeah.
Injury.
But yeah, Lookman gets a penalty save then, and then when Lookman gets that penalty, it's like there's a chance that Atalanta, if he scores that, they can maybe get a comeback. But after the penalty save, it's kind of like, there's probably a very low chance. And yeah, all I can say is I believe Atalanta underestimated Club Brugge because of how they did in the group stage. And then their high line, it cost their defensive line strength. And also, I feel that Atalanta relies way too much on Lookman, and players like Charles de Ketelaere, although he's a very up-and-coming young player, I do believe is a slightly bit overrated. Also, Guerrero. Also, I believe Retegui doesn't really pull his weight, and everything's on Lookman. All the spotlight's on Lookman, and when he's injured, it's unfair amount of pressure on him. So yeah, I'll let you all debate on that.
Okay, so I think you said that Atalanta's 3 center backs are bad.
No, I didn't say they were bad. In this game,
matching the best center back. I can't lie.
I think they were they were decent, but it was mainly you have to say it's mainly the high line. Any center back that has to deal with that high line have to do that high line. It's not gonna cope well with it. I think they did their best with what they had to do. That's what I would say. I don't think they're bad. I actually don't think that the 3 center backs were bad. Just that high line is ridiculous, and that mainly cost them that. That mainly cost them this game for sure. And then with Lookman, I think you said it was an injury. Yeah, he was injured. Although it seemed off because he got subbed in. It wasn't like a crazy injury, but it was definitely something to where he couldn't of course started in this game. And then, with the Ketelaere, I agree with that. He is, for me, he's definitely overrated. Because, people hype up he's this young talent, can create assists, create chances, and all that. But for me, a center attacking midfielder has to be able to get a goal. Has to be able to actually score, get chances and get goals. And you take a look at Bellingham, if Bellingham doesn't get that goal, they don't go through. They don't go through against Man City. There's so many other examples of attacking midfielders that their requirement, I guess you say, is to actually be able to get that type of goal. It's true though. So the kind of lot in that sense if you can't get that goal, then by that definition, he's a little bit overrated. Yeah, he creates some chances here and there, but if you can't get a clutch goal or just at least provide, be right next to Lookman to be able, in the sense of kind of not carrying the team, but provide things to the team that they really need, then I in my eyes, I would see that type of player a little bit overrated. In this sense.
I kind of understand where you're coming from with that, like in terms of De Ketelaere and then as Retegui as well. They're not really pulling their weight, especially when you compare them to Ademola Lookman. And it's tough as well because you can be like, oh, well, he didn't score, but to your point with the back line, Club Brugge did a very good job of getting him behind, and it was Calby as well with the 2 goals. He was very impressive, and then once it got to that point as well, you could see that Club Brugge just completely shifted back defensively.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then Lookman gets brought on at half, scores 30 seconds into the match, and then obviously tries to ride that momentum with the penalty, but unfortunately gets missed. And then Gasperini obviously has his comments out there in the media.
Yeah, what are your thoughts on all that? I'm still trying to digest that, and I think it's very irresponsible personally from Gasperini. I don't know what the fallout exactly is going to be. I know it's definitely going to be negative. I don't know just how negative. I don't know if that means. I don't know if that means.
Oh, that's for sure. It's going to mean Lookman is.
I'm pretty sure. Capitano Romano said that Lookman's going to leave. I think it was even before that incident, though. I think he was
exactly.
This is just this will give him even more incentive to leave. That's basically what that comment should lead to, at least, right? You can't recover from that. You can't have a good relationship with your manager after he basically calls you out like that.
Definitely not. I think that's definitely a conversation that has to be had, in the dressing room, one-on-one. I think just bashing him out in the media is especially given that he's one of their best players. It's a recipe for disaster, honestly.
Yeah, especially after what he did last season in that final against Leverkusen. It's terrible taste in those moments where you have a superstar player that does so much for your club. Like an example of it, Mbappe versus Liverpool this season. He frankly had a terrible match, but you have to, at that point, if you're Ancelotti, go out and back your player. And so to see from another talented manager with pedigree, an Italian one, in Gasperini, to see him doing that was certainly a surprise, even if, he thinks De Ketelaere should have taken the penalty. It's something, to Daniel's point, you manage internally.
For sure. And also he mentioned Retegui as well, but I think that's dumb because Retegui, he took that horrible penalty against Arsenal. People saying, oh, great save from Ray. Yeah, it was a good double save, but the initial penalty from Retegui was horrible. So Atalanta, I was gonna they gotta sort out the penalty takers. They gotta sort the penalty takers. Yeah, that's for sure.
But do you agree with that? De Ketelaere overrated thing, Dimitri?
I do. Yeah.
You agree with it? Okay.
Yeah.
What do you think, Daniel?
I feel like it definitely is a hot take. That's all I'll say. I think some people disagree. Some people.
Yeah. Do you two, Tristan or Daniel, have anything else to add about the game?
Yeah, I honestly thought Retegui. I definitely feel like he should have been better at giving his performances in the Serie A. He's been unreal in the Serie A. And just you need him to show up in these type of games. You need players like that when things aren't going the best to really have sparks of individual brilliance, produce something offensively, and he didn't do that for me. And especially how well he's played, how clinical he's been in the Serie A. I think he should have been better.
Yeah,
I definitely agree. But then when you're talking about he's looking so good in the Serie A, and then you see obviously bar Inter, you look at this playoff round and you look at these performances in these Italian sides, it certainly gives pause when you're evaluating the quality of the league.
But the thing is also that Retegui, how young is he? I don't even think he's the inexperience. There has to be a little bit of that inexperience.
It's a young team.
Whereas, for example, Lookman is.
I think he's 25.
He's 25.
25. Okay. but he hasn't really. There's not much like Champions League or just Champions League or just European experience with him. I guess. I mean, whereas Lookman maybe has a little bit more because he has like obviously the Europa League, Europa League games and stuff like that.
Yeah,
so
the game of his life.
Those. I guess you could say that prerequisite going into this Champions League season. So.
Yeah, it's just Lookman had the game of his life in the final, and ultimately that's just carried his confidence and all that. So yeah, he has that added bonus. But yeah,
Tegui doesn't have that, so I don't know. Yeah, I wouldn't put. I would definitely say like, okay, yeah, maybe Tegui should have done a little bit better, but there's some other players as well to blame in this scenario too.
Yeah,
I don't know. I think mainly you would have to say high line. I still have to stick with that. It's the high line, man. It's just really.
I mean, yeah, defense wins you trophies,
championships and trophies, and certain games that when they're really tight. Like you need to be able to have a defensive solidity in those tight games, and if you don't, then you just kind of have a schoolyard game. Basically, that's
absolutely.
Not everyone has the flick high line. That's pretty cool.
With the high line, you need like a certain type of you need a certain type of personnel in the center backs being really pacey, or you have to have really good pressing. And if you don't have either of those two, it's a recipe for disaster. I mean, you're gonna get smashed against any competent attacking side if you don't have either of those two.
Absolutely,
for sure.
I think also I don't know. For me, it kind of only works for certain type of teams. So if you get like a team that's a little bit more possession based, they'll wait you out. They'll wait. They'll be patient. They'll be able to find that gap because you have that high line. I think that it can work in certain games, but if you want consistent wins, especially in the highest level, Champions League, you really have to be a little bit more conservative with that high line. I think
that's just the Italian.
I'm saying, like, it's just like
definitely risky. Like for sure, it's definitely
so risky, and so risky. And again, if you go against that slower kind of team, the slow pace down of the game, you're gonna get caught out. And even it doesn't matter how fast the center backs are, unless they're like, I don't even know, Mbappe. All of them are Mbappe speed or something. I don't know. Like it's super hard to hold that for each and every team we verse to use it.
Yeah, it goes back to personnel and execution, in my opinion. Like they don't all need to be fast, especially like when you look at like Inigo and then Kubarsi. Like they're not physical freaks because of the personnel they have. Obviously, two very good fullbacks and the execution and consistency that Flick has with it. It can work.
Yeah, it can work, I would say.
Yeah. All I can say is Inter probably right now are taking notes how they don't get knocked out next. They gotta find a way to save the image of Serie A. Because I just want to say, in my opinion, especially the past 5 years, I think Serie A is the second most competitive league in the world, bar the Premier League. But with these performances of Italian teams now in the Champions League this season, that is being put at risk. So that's all I can say for that. But for the next game I want to cover, so the next game we're going to talk about is Bayern Munich versus Celtic. This one definitely was, it was not the outcome I expected. Like, we knew Bayern was going to go through, but we didn't expect it to be this much of a struggle for them. And watching the entire game, Steph and I, we were taking notes, and one thing we noticed right off the bat first is Celtic actually set up extremely well defensively over the two legs. Also in the second leg, really well playing away from home, because you knew at Celtic Park they can play really well, but also at Allianz Arena their defense was extremely compact, and throughout the entire first half they didn't let any Bayern players shoot inside the 18-yard box. They could only shoot outside the 18-yard box. And then also you have Schmeichel, who played excellent. So it was just made it really hard for Bayern to score. It wasn't until I believe the 60th something minute where Bayern got a shot in the box. And then after that, Schmeichel made some great saves. Even with the Alphonso Davies excellent goal, very clutch. It was a tap-in, but great awareness from him. it was still a great save from Schmeichel, but he didn't parry it too well, unfortunately. And I guess it was just really unfortunate for Celtic. Yeah. So do you have any opinions, Stefano? Then we'll get to you. Yeah, both of you. We'll get both to you.
Well, it's just like really impressive how Celtic was able to be so defensive and be able to still be able also to be able to score. Defensively, it's really hard to set up defensively against Bayern, as most teams know. Like Bayern is always going to be that attacking threat. They dealt with Bayern really nicely, I thought, and did basically the best they could have done with going against Bayern. Like I don't think like a team that is of their level, I don't think they could have done anything better than what they had, in those what they did in those two legs. I think. And again, like Schmeichel had a game of his life as well. Other than that last minute mess up, but
I would say it's really a mess up. It's more nuanced. It's just
depending on what you see. If you're a Celtic fan, we're going to say, why did Schmeichel do that? But then you should also come to the realization that Schmeichel was just amazing this game, bar that.
Yeah, it's really specific because it's just he didn't parry it well.
Yeah,
it was still.
It's like you can't really, blame the whole entire loss to Schmeichel.
Yeah, and it was great awareness from Davies to pounce on that loose ball before the Celtic defenders got to it. But speaking of defending, definitely before I get to you, Tristan and Daniel, Bayern's defense, definitely. I've been talking about this whole podcast, but just to get into Bayern's center back. So in terms of Upamecano, I'll get into him first. He has probably one of the best physicalities in terms of defenders. Like his physicality is one of the best out of all the defenders in all of Europe and all that. We've seen it with like France and Bayern, Leipzig previously, but all other aspects of his game need work on. Definitely need work on. We already know that. And then Kim, he's just the shadow of his former Napoli self. Like, of course, in that single season he had Napoli, 2022 to 23, he replaced Koulibaly, who was at that time Napoli's star defender, and he not only played at the level of Koulibaly, but even better, he was an absolute rock and was, I believe, definitely a key reason why Napoli won that Serie A after 30 years of domestic trophy drought. And but since coming at Bayern, he just hasn't really played. He's a shadow of his former self, I already said. And he was the reason why Celtic actually scored in the second half of the 61st minute. And it was just he didn't clear his lines well. And Kuhn, former Bayern player as well, from German international, capitalized on that careless play at the back from Bayern. And it just highlighted Kim's poor defending. But Davies saved it. But Bayern will definitely need to look into how to sort this out for their upcoming round of 16 game, because
the attack,
not just attack, but mainly the defense, right? Because they're either against Leverkusen or Atletico, and basically Bayern against Atletico in the Champions League hasn't always worked out their way. For example, in 2016 in the semifinals, they got knocked out by them. And then Leverkusen, recently in the Bundesliga, Leverkusen has won more, and it usually results in ties. But even in the most recent game, which was last weekend, I watched the entire game.
They outplayed.
Yeah, they got outplayed. Leverkusen should have honestly won. They hit the post 3 times. But what are your thoughts on Bayern Munich going forward, Tristan and Daniel?
I just think that all season Bayern have been absolutely horrific defensively. I mean, when you look at their back line, when you have Eric Dyer being your best center back, you're in trouble. I mean, you look at Kim. I mean, it's not. I just saw that he has problems with his Achilles tendon that he suffered. He had suffered some sort of knock in like October that's kind of hindering him. But it's not just that. It's just his IQ, his overall defensive ability. It's just very, very poor. He's been even last season against Real Madrid. I don't know how you still keep him on the squad when he makes that error in that big of a game. That horrible mistake to just leave Vinny unmarked with Toni Kroos on the ball. Like, what is he doing? Yeah. He's always costing Bayern so many points. And Upamecano, he's not much better. I mean, as you mentioned, his physicality, his strength, and his recovery pace is really good, but his defending, he you can always count on him having a bozo moment. I mean, you saw it with in 2023 against City. That's one of the worst center back performances I've ever seen in my life. I don't know how you still keep him in the squad. I think you have to look towards completely changing that back line. They signed Ito. I think you throw him in there with Eric Dyer, and but even not even their defense. Like I think Bayern just offensively they are struggling to create as well. I think Musiala didn't have a great game.
Yeah, he was Yeah, I didn't really see so much of him.
Yeah, no, not at all. Michael Elise wasn't great either, and then Harry Kane. You can never count on that guy in big games. He's a clinical finisher, but I think he's having some injury problems recently. But I think Kimmich was definitely the best player. I liked how he was spraying the balls and just dictating the tempo in the midfield. He's a staple in that squad. But I think Bayern really have to figure out their defense problems.
No, for sure.
Yeah. Absolutely, kind of just leapfrogging off of that. I would definitely agree with Kim last season. Yeah, it was that first leg. I believe it was like two very key defensive mistakes where Vinny cuts in to create space and then just cuts right back to where he was. So gives Tony that space to deliver that ball. Great ball, but again, that's still on Kim. Obviously, Eric Dyer, the poor guy, he can't get there. And then the other one, he gave the penalty away on Rodrigo, I believe it was, but. Yeah, to Daniel's point, the back line is just not good enough. And then in both of those games, and then even the game versus Leverkusen, Jamal Musiala didn't really have the impact that they would have, desired. So at least for me, obviously, you look at the pedigree that Bayern has. But with that being said, going up against Atletico Madrid or Leverkusen, who completely outplayed them just recently over two legs, I don't really love their chances.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, Bayern's
company.
Definitely
Vincent Kompany, Champions League. I said this before. So with Vincent Kompany, we don't know the extent of how good he could be in Champions League, of course, because he's a newer coach. But I mean, if you take a look at his playing days, I mean, you can't just say he has the most experience in Champions League in general, just as a tournament, playing and or coaching. So there's kind of like that level to it. There's something there, of course, to take into consideration why potentially Bayern's not playing up to the level in Champions League. Now within the league, well, we're already seeing Bayern does pretty well, right? Is doing pretty well in the league for the most part, and this is kind of like reminiscent, like again, Kompany obviously as a player as well did really good in the league with Man City. I know it's Man City, but still. Like, there's this level of experience you kind of have to have in certain competitions, whether it be a player or a coach, that allow you to translate that, I guess you could say, as a coach, to the players that, this is the level we've got to be at because I played as a player or I coached this game. I know this is the level we got to be at, right? So with Kompany, we don't know the full extent of how he changed his tactic based off of a Champions League game versus a in-season game or Bundesliga game.
Yeah, I would be surprised if he gets found out here, to your point, but yeah.
Yeah.
No, absolutely. Yeah, makes sense. Definitely. I think Kompany will be put under the microscope more, especially in Europe and all that. And he definitely has a lot of pressure in the Bundesliga still, because even though Bayern are ahead, they didn't play too well against Leverkusen. Who knows what could happen? A lot can change in the remaining couple months before the league season comes to the close domestically as well. But we're going to head over to our Wednesday, February 19th matches now. First of all, we're going to start off with Sporting Lisbon versus Dortmund. Game ended up 3-0 aggregate because the game was finished. Second leg was 0-0. All I can say is, this one, it just really showed how it's a bummer because it just shows how much Sporting has fallen off since the beginning of the season. of course, like for the first 4 games of the league phase, Sporting were on top of everything. With Gyökeres in fire form, he was like everyone knew he was like the top young striker in Europe, catching the eyes of all like the top elite.
Young.
Gyökeres.
Isn't he?
Gyökeres is like 27.
I would say he's like still in his prime, but he's got a lot of years.
26.
He's got a lot of years left.
Yeah, he's getting into his prime. That's kind of why it's like why he's showing this right now.
That's the thing, though. I see him as a young player, just the way he plays. Like I know.
I guess so. But like, okay, but if let's say you're a team and you're trying to buy Gyökeres, you have to at least question how long the contract will be based off of that.
That's true.
So, yeah, if you're a team trying to sign him, you have to be a little bit cautious, somewhat, even though he's having this form right now.
Yeah, he's also played in the Bundesliga and the Championship, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he's still 26 or 27. Even though he plays, I know what you're trying to say. Yeah, he's plays young, but like, yeah, it's something to consider. If you're trying to sign him as a team's trying to sign him.
Yeah, all I can say is that since Armin left and Sporting just fallen down, they nearly didn't even qualify for advancing from the league phase. I just found that they relied too much on Gyökeres, and he still missed this game due to a thigh injury, and that just really showed. They couldn't get any goal back. They couldn't really mount a comeback because the game finished 0-0.
And in the first leg, I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think he got subbed in or something like that, or whatever it was. But it just wasn't, enough. It's kind of like a very kind of similar situation to like how important Lookman is, and Gyökeres is kind of the same for Sporting. Like, not having Gyökeres in proper form in the sense of like not being injured or whatever, right? Having these like inflammations and stuff like that. Not having him, at full fitness basically, definitely affected Sporting's, games in general. Just after he wasn't able to play, right?
For sure.
Yeah. You got to feel for Sporting in this situation, because you have Man United coming in and they're just like kind of dragging Sporting down with them, because like as soon as they got rid of Amorim, you could see the play style and how Sporting was doing kind of fall apart, and then obviously having Gyökeres with fitness issues, those two. Mm-hmm. It's not to say that they would have gone through against Dortmund even with Amorim, but those two you're not going to get through with that happening to your team.
Mm-hmm. For sure. Do you have any opinion, Dan?
I mean, this
is pretty much having Jadine Gao was a big miss for them, because he's one of their main creative sparks as well. Producing a lot on the right, sorry. And I think not having him was pretty good. I think that's one thing that a lot of people might overlook, but definitely Amorim leaving, just completely different team. I mean, you saw how they smashed Man City in the playoff. No, not just the group stage of the Champions League. Completely dominated them. And it is unfortunate, but at the end of the day, that's kind of modern football. I mean, when you have a bigger team knocking for one of your bigger players, it's always going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they had Quenda in their lineup, but then they don't really have Amorim guiding him. So young team, still that pedigree.
And Sporting, with the, I don't know what you would think as well, but Sporting, I think with a new manager is a little bit more defensive. Like, they're not as attacking focused. You can kind of see they're a little bit maybe more possession based or something like this. There's definitely a shift in tactic which completely, ruin their, I guess you say, their form, because they have to shift completely to a different tactic. Like, that's going to ruin form regardless, of how, I guess you say, talented the team is. If the new manager came in, I don't know if there was a way he could figure out like how to shift his tactic to be a little bit more similar. So that way there's less adjustment and maybe there's a different story to be told. But I think that's another key reason why Sporting kind of fell off is the change of tactic, like probably complete change too. Like, it's not even just like, they're going from one attacking style to another. No, I think it's actually just like one attacking style to kind of a more possession based defensive style, which really affected their players that they have, right? Because they're probably more adapted to that attacking style that they're used to.
Yeah, no, for sure. All I can say is that's definitely for Sporting, but you got to also look at Dortmund as well. just how Niko Kovac is gonna kind of look at his team, because their finishing wasn't too great this game.
That's true
as well for Dortmund, and yeah, it was just
There's a reason for that.
Yeah,
I mean, Sporting wasn't really going after it too much, and the Dortmund kind of knew this. Dortmund kind of just played the, let's kind of tire them out. Let's just win it.
But what's next for Dortmund? The lucky thing with Dortmund, though, is, if you look at the draw, they're either going against Aston Villa or Lille. But at the same time, you can't underestimate both those teams. Though both of those teams could not easily, but they could definitely beat Dortmund.
More so Aston Villa than Lille. They can beat Lille.
Yeah, what are your thoughts, Tristan or Daniel, on this for Dortmund?
Yeah, I think that it's definitely a winnable game for Aston Villa or Lille. I think Dortmund are one of the most favorable matchups. If you look at the way that they've been playing in the Bundesliga, it's been horrific. It's been horrific.
Yeah.
I mean, they're losing to teams like St. Pauli, just horrible. Just the games that should be a given that they win, and I think they're 11th or 12th in the Bundesliga. So this season has just been a struggle for them. Obviously with Kovac as their manager, I mean, I don't really rate Kovac. You saw what he did with Bayern. He had to get sacked immediately. When he was.
You saw what he did against Real Madrid too, as well.
Mm-hmm.
They were completely outplaying us, and then he decided to make the substitution that he did, and the game completely flipped on its head. So especially in that managerial head-to-head with Unai Emery, I would definitely take him over Dortmund in this case, if that's the way that the
draw goes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, that's something good to think about, because it's always good. The winners always gotta definitely take notes after the game, even if they have a good performance. Sometimes it's not always the case. Even if the score looked good for Dortmund, it wasn't really the case if you look at the stats. That's all I can say, and it's something for Dortmund to reflect on as they move on to the later stages of the tournament. But next game we're going to talk about is PSG versus Brest. All I can say is it was very expected. Stefan and I, we knew PSG would go through, given how the last, I believe, 11 accounts. So a lot of it, multiple.
Good. Of course, the PSG is dominatingly good right now as well.
Yeah.
There's no saving Brest.
Yeah, and just some points of the game. So, Kvara, it was interesting because we were wondering where Kvara would play. It was his first Champions League game for PSV. We didn't know what it would be like. PSG, yeah. He was he was in a striker role, so we did predict that in terms of Barcola going to the left wing and then Kvara going in the center.
But it's interesting too, because we did know probably, I'm not totally sure kind of what was the tactic with it, but my guess would be that Kvara kind of would maybe shift to the right or where he wants to go, and then Barcola moves right. So I think there's just three wingers, and then they're all just kind of shifting and just causing crazy chaos for the back line. I don't even think Kvara was the striker, but that's obviously where on the lineup he is. I don't know what you guys' takes on that.
He was a hunter that had a false nine, I feel like.
Yeah.
Sometimes he played the 10 sometimes, but an inverted winger kind of.
Yeah, it's just really weird to see him as a striker. It's just I guess he's just gonna roll around, That's what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, I know we're praising these PSG players, but to give credit to Brest, they actually did try to mount a comeback, and they nearly scored in the 12th minute if it weren't for Marquinhos making goal and block. But then after that, in the 19th minute, Barcola scored the first goal, and then Kvara soon followed, and then all with the rest of the PSG and co. So
Dembele goal too, though. That's a kind of an interesting one.
That's an interesting one. He actually got subbed off. Yeah,
he got subbed off.
Yeah, the game's over.
They wanted to save.
Not gonna have that same impact.
I guess they didn't really care about scoring, but
yeah, and just for PSG, you're just looking forward. That's kind of where you're they've improved so much, but it seems like their party might end early, and all their achievements that they made in terms of becoming the most improved team for the Champions League, because they were really bad at the beginning, but now they've improved so much. Dembele's having, in my opinion, a Ballon d'Or season. I don't think he's going to win it, but he's definitely in the conversation. And he's finally, it's just the best I've seen him play ever. But now they're going against either Liverpool or Barcelona, and it's going to be really hard. But what are your opinions, Tristan and Daniel, on Dembele in general, and how it will work for PSG in the Champions League from now on?
I've been impressed with what Luis Enrique has done with his team. Obviously, like PSG, they certainly don't have the pedigree of winning in the Champions League, but their midfield and attack has been very dangerous. Obviously, Fabian Ruiz is coming off such a great Euro campaign, and he's continued that, especially in the Champions League, from what I've seen. And then João Neves as well. It's a very, very dangerous team, and it's almost ironic, but I do feel like they, obviously, having to go against Liverpool or Barcelona, I'd personally like to see them go up against Barcelona just because I think it would be electric to watch. So it is kind of unfortunate because they're going up against, obviously, possibly two different but very strong sides. But I still do like their chances. They're a dangerous team and they should not be underestimated. But I'll hand it over to Daniel.
Yeah, I think Dembele, the biggest problem with him is that there was times at Barca where he'd have really good games, where he'd create a lot of havoc, but his final third production was just so poor, and we saw it again and again and again. And then with the injuries, but now he's finally staying fit, and it seems like his finishing has really taken another level. Not only that, but his IQ in the final third, went to cross it, went to center it. He just seems completely different. I mean, you look at it, even his performance against City, he didn't even start that game. I believe he came on, and when he came on, he completely changed the outlook of the game. And then not too long ago, he had back-to-back hat tricks. I mean, if you would have told me 2 years ago that Dembele would be having back-to-back hat tricks, I think you're lying. So yeah, it's definitely like encouraging if you're a PSG fan, seeing Dembele play undoubtedly his best football in his career at this very moment.
For sure. Yeah.
Do you think it's a better do you think it's a better draw if they get Barcelona or Liverpool? I think
man, that's
actually
it's got to be Barca, in my opinion. Like it's got to be.
Yeah.
For you, Daniel. Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Liverpool's gonna be finalists, right? They got to be.
Yeah, I think either are difficult, but I think Liverpool, especially recently, if you look at their more recent games, I think they're more susceptible defensively. I mean, obviously you have Van Dijk, who for me remains the best center back in the world. They're like Robertson, Trent, Tsimikas. Defensively, their fullbacks aren't amazing, and I think that attack can definitely do something against Liverpool.
For sure.
But
can they win?
Barcelona, I mean, we lost to them last season too, right?
Yeah.
But that was because of Araujo. That was not.
That was because of Araujo.
On the team.
But you know, like the Champions League demons have definitely been there for us.
That's true.
But I'd still expect Barcelona to win, and I also would expect Liverpool to win. I think the biggest downfall for PSG is the defense. I think
I agree.
Bacho's still a very young, inexperienced center back, and Marquinhos, he's a very solid center back, but we've seen him fold in big games. If you look at him versus Real Madrid, him versus City, he's had some bad moments when it really matters. So I think
that's true. Yeah.
Plus both their fullbacks as well, both Hakimi and Nuno Mendes. I would say their strength is primarily going forward. Defensively, they can still be got at.
Yeah, that's for sure. But yeah, in terms of PSG in the future, though, I just want to make another point. But yeah, even if they do get knocked out against the likes of Liverpool, Barcelona, lots to look forward to for upcoming seasons because Dembele hopefully keeps being in the great form he is. Also, in terms of Barcola, also João Neves.
Yeah,
I mean,
João Neves.
The interesting thing of him is he's like the new PSG wonder kid, but unlike the former PSG wonder kids, he doesn't seem to be bogged down by like all the pressure that's usually is handed to these PSG wonder kids, and he's handling it in a really mature way, staying focused on just playing football, not letting everyone around him get like in his head, and that's something I really look like. That's something where I'm like, that's a really good quality to have, and I feel that he will continue consistently playing at the level he is, if not get better. So it's just a good sign. Yeah.
He's one of the signings of the season. I mean,
Absolutely.
it was unreal from the sporting director to get him in and to pair him with already one of the best midfielders in the world in Vitinha.
No, yeah.
Like Vitinha, we haven't talked about that guy, but he's a game changer. I mean, he is like he's up there. In my opinion, he's been top 3 midfielders this season in all of Europe. And then you pair him with Fabian Ruiz, who we know the quality that he possesses, and João Neves and Zaire Emery, who's injured right now. But look at the talent, look at the depth in the midfield, and it's definitely encouraging if you're a PSG fan.
For sure.
Especially if you're looking at past PSG teams as well, for sure. They've got a very solid midfield.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure.
Well, and then I think me and Dimitri definitely said this with PSG. This is finally a PSG side that is very passionate, wants to win games. No, not many egos there. Like obviously PSG always has this ego problem. But I think finally we're seeing something that resembles a team. I guess you would just say when it comes to chemistry, when it comes to just not many egos being there, and really listening to the coach tactically and not just like basically wandering off or doing your own thing. Maybe like a Neymar could be criticized at PSG, Mbappe, whatever, just doing their own thing, whatever, not listening to the coach. But this is the first time we've actually seen a PSG side do that. And that is like just amazing to see it actually happen live. Like finally, we've finally seen this. When talent meets passion, this is what we're seeing right now.
Absolutely. PSG. Yeah, speaking of talent and passion, we are going to be talking about a team that has both. We're going to talk about Man City versus Real Madrid game.
It's time.
Honestly, I'll just give an update on the scores and that, and then Tristan, I'll hand it over to you, honestly, just to give your take and like analysis of the match and what you really liked and what's next for Real Madrid, because all I can say is that Real Madrid beat Man City 3-1 at the Bernabeu, aggregate 6-3, Mbappe with the hat trick. Yeah, what more can I say? It was just like, that was good to see, but also I just saw Man City and I was just like, this is such a bad fall off. Like, in terms of the Manchester football teams, we talk about Man United's downfall. The difference of Man United's downfall, it has been a very gradual downfall that's taken place over more than a decade. Whereas Man City, their downfall is like Man United, but it's only been like 3 months and they've just absolutely plummeted, because only 6 months ago, they were the best team in the world, you could say.
Yeah.
Anything to say about just Real Madrid and Man City, though?
Maybe just to mention, Haaland was injured, recovering from a knee injury, in fact, for this game. So that's why he wasn't there. So maybe we can also talk about like how Haaland, him not being there, affected the outcome of this game.
It was a case of Rudigeritis, I think. Jamie Carragher was calling it.
Yeah.
Obviously, he didn't start because of that. It was Marmoush filling in, who couldn't really get going, but it's on Pep, honestly, putting him in that situation. He didn't do too well against Raul Asensio, who I thought played a very solid game, disregarding what he's got going on off the pitch. He had that very good ball, I think it was in the third or fourth minute, to Mbappe to open up the scoring. Mm-hmm. And again, Daniel watches a whole lot of La Liga as well, so he can speak to Real Madrid as well. But Mbappe just absolutely stellar in this game. We saw, obviously, in the first few months of the league, or of the season, I should say, he was definitely not doing too hot. But there was all the jokes that when there was that game in Qatar, that like he finally got his soul back, he finally got his spirit back. But it's honestly not a joke, because since January he's been electric, scoring a huge hat trick, 3 world-class goals. But Daniel, you can speak to it a bit as well.
Yeah, obviously I thought, Man City came pretty flat-footed, and just the whole, from the start of the game, you knew that they just weren't really going for it, but that's not to take away any credit from Real Madrid. I actually think that collectively this was their best performance of the season. You look at how the midfield operated. Their defense was so solid. Rudiger coming back from injury. Asensio had a tremendous game. I mean, that assist is just impressive. You have to give credit where credit is due.
Mhm.
And I think it was a huge difference seeing Real Madrid in this game compared to other big games in the Champions League this season, because you didn't have Lucas Vazquez at right back. And,
Don't get me started.
and it makes such a big difference when you have Fede Valverde, who was unbelievable, out of position. Real Madrid just looks so much more structured defensively. And yeah, Mbappe, his best performance in a Real Madrid shirt.
Yeah.
And he's coming back. It's a scary sight to see as a Barca fan, for sure. And it's really encouraging to see. Like, I think he right now, I always said that on form he's the best player in the world.
Yeah.
And he's picking it up again. And he's looking very dangerous. And all three of his goals, they weren't tap-ins, they weren't penalties. They were insane finishing in the first one, dinking it over Ederson, skinning Gavardiol in the second, and then cutting
second one.
And then cutting in with his left foot. And that's just incredible.
What do you think of the celebration after?
For the second one.
Celebration.
Yeah, I think it's I don't know. I mean, I don't really care about Gavardiol or City. It was pretty petty though. I can't lie. Yeah. It was pretty petty.
Mbappe was like, "Look what I just did to this guy."
I don't know if it deserved that, but it is Mbappe. So
yeah, it was. I was talking to Daniel about it last night, where it was. I saw a comment that I thought was funny, where it was like, "Oh, like it's so nice that Mbappe he does like ASL, like American Sign Language, after every goal to like help people who can't understand what's going on. He's always doing." These motions and whatnot with his hand, but just going back to what Daniel was saying about Valverde as well. Yeah, he's honestly, it's Real Madrid, but you still do have to give him shouts for just how underrated he is when you see him in the midfield, just how dominant he is, how he can be everywhere, help everywhere on the pitch, especially when I feel like Bellingham does get a lot of that attention, where Valverde for sure deserves a lot of it. And then you see him obviously backing it right back, and he's one of the best right backs in the world when he's playing there. The guy's really unreal. But then with what Daniel spoke on with Lucas Vazquez, it's definitely frustrating because, you know, for all that Ancelotti has done for Real Madrid, he's often very stubborn. And so there's been reports, just ongoing pretty much whenever Lucas has been out, that, whenever he's back, you know, he's going to be playing and starting again, which for 95% of Real Madrid fans, you know, no one wants this. But you could even see after the first, like me and Daniel spoke to this as well, where it was the leg was over, obviously, as soon as Bellingham scored, or even Brahim scoring, and especially after that opening goal in the second leg from Mbappe, you could see that City were ready to roll over. And then even Guardiola, you know, obviously he spent 200 million in the January transfer window, but it's like, what changes is he really going to make that's going to be able to combat this Real Madrid team, especially when they're playing how they were, which they haven't been able to show this season very often.
No, that's definitely true. And
how do you guys think this affects Pep Guardiola's, like, let's just say, standing with Man City now after crashing out in such a kind of crazy fashion, I guess you could say? Does it affect like if he's gonna leave?
Well, we already talked about it though, how he's gonna stay. But
I guess it gives like uncertainty. Do you guys think that as well? Like that would give him a little uncertainty, or do you think the management is still like, they're not even going to consider at all getting rid of?
I don't think they would consider getting rid of Pep at all. I think more so it raises questions about his legacy, because obviously the guy's won 2 trebles, but you look at the teams that he's done it with, and then especially his success, not only in the Premier League, but obviously in the Champions League with Man City, there has to be some sort of asterisk around it when they have the 115, if not more, charges against them, plus the spending that like no other club can even compete with. Like if you look at the January transfer window spending, comparing like all of La Liga just to Man City, it's ridiculous. And so obviously missing Rodri, missing Haaland, which again, it's going to make a difference, but still just doesn't excuse how poor of a showing they've had over both legs, where they probably only played about 30 minutes of good football and were there for the taking the rest of the time.
No, that's
I don't know. I think that like Pep though, he's won the Prem.
Yeah.
What is it, like 5 out of the last 6 years. He won
6 in a row. He's going for 6 in a row.
Well, how it works is, so Pep, basically his Man City's history is he arrived in the 2016 to 17 season. In his first season, he actually didn't win anything. He was called Fraudiola because of that. Chelsea won that season. That's their last Premier League to date. But then he won his first Premier League with City in 2018. And that's when City achieved 100 points. So they were Centurions. Then City won again in 2019. Then they were trying to get the three-peat in 2020, but Liverpool had that historic season. But then after that, from 2021 to 2024, Man City, they were able to achieve the three-peat. They've won 4 in a row. They're not going to win a 5th in a row, but still, there's just tons of recors.
5 and 6 is crazy in the Prem.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And obviously, like, people will say, like, oh, look how much City have spent, but look at how much United have spent. Look at how much Chelsea have spent. Like, it's not like it's a monopoly. Like, all of these Prem clubs are spending a lot of money.
No, that's a good point.
I don't think it affects Pep Guardiola's legacy. Me personally, I think he overstayed.
Yeah.
After winning
I agree with that. Yeah.
I think
after
he
winning
overstayed.
the Champions League? Is that when he overstayed?
After winning the Champions League, you then win the Prem, and still have a very good season last season. And your main players that you kind of won with, they're getting to a stage where they're just not what they were.
Yeah, like to Barca, wasn't there like a couple other players leave or something?
Well, Gundogan returned back to.
Yeah, I know, but when they did win the Champions, though, when they won the Champions League, they Gundogan that went to Barca. Like, it felt like this is the ending of. This is how the Man City dynasty should end, right?
Yeah.
Pep should now go to the next project or whatever. But no, yeah, I agree with that he did overstay. Like, he did stay there too long.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true with the players. Like, I'm mainly thinking of De Bruyne. Like, De Bruyne is definitely one of those players that he's
so past it. Like,
there's so many players there.
He's one of the best 10s of all time. Don't get it twisted, but I think seeing the way that he's performed this season, like, he needs to retire, go to Saudi Arabia. But it's nothing to know.
Yeah, I think he wanted to leave or something like that, but then Man City declined or something like this. Like, he was supposed to leave to Saudi Arabia, but I think he was meant to leave, and then I think maybe Pep was like, "Okay, please stay for one season, please. I need you." Or something.
I think it's Man City coaches and fans are still too hung up on his treble-winning season, which was still pretty recent. They still think he can replicate that performance sometime in the future, but I genuinely don't think he can.
But then the time we have to leave. I said this on on one of the other pods. Like, there's a time in which for a coach should leave. Like, you can't stay forever. That's always going to be the case. It's always up and down. And if for a coach you want to leave on up, because then at least you kind of take a look at the Klopp when he left. Yeah, there were a little bit of a downward spiral, a little bit, but it wasn't to this kind of Man City level now. When Arne Slot came in, boom! There's not much. There's not much rebuilding to do. It's just more about adaptation.
It's the same team, pretty much. Yeah.
Exactly. It's more about adaptation to Slot's tactic, which, to be fair, it's actually quite similar. You kind of have to say to Klopp. So there's not much changing to do. And now we're seeing Slot unbelievable, just picking up where Klopp left off, and maybe who knows, maybe doing better. I don't even know.
Yeah.
So, but that's what should have happened with Man City. I think as soon as they won that Champions League, or maybe after they won the Prem, but they stuck with Guardiola. Now we're seeing the downfall, extended more than it should be.
Also, one last thing I want to ask. Also, so there's the De Bruyne situation. City fans are too hung up on that treble-winning season. But then also, if you look at some of the younger, at least talents, like Foden, who's now entering his prime, he's just not he's a shadow of his last season. There's people saying they haven't seen Foden since June 2024, and I honestly believe that. He got wrecked in the game against Real Madrid, the most recent game, and he should be the future of Man City, but it's just not working out. So yeah, do you have an opinion on Foden, Tristan or Daniel?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, you go.
Yeah, I think Foden, like he's been. I think in the start of the season he was dealing with some injury issues. So off the bat, he was out of the starting lineup for the first couple games. But yeah, I think he's been very poor this season, and even with England, you look at him domestically, he's been very, very bad. One of the worst players for England's attack. And you see how talented he is, but it begs the question if he can fit in other systems. I mean, against Real Madrid in the second leg, he was genuinely terrible. I thought in the first leg he wasn't great, but he was definitely one of City's best players. But yeah, Foden, I think if a new manager comes and he still doesn't perform how he should, I think serious questions need to be raised.
No, that's a very good point.
Just looping back to the whole Pep situation, though, I don't think he'll go, but I could see him, rebuilding, obviously. Man City, they have a couple of players that obviously need to go, so I wouldn't be surprised if he kind of does rebuild this City team back into to prominence, and then from there leaving. But in terms of Foden, yeah, I would agree. In the first leg, he was one of the better players for City, but again, they had a pretty poor performance, so it's not really saying all too much. But yeah, in that second leg, he was just really a non-factor. And then this season as a whole, obviously he's had his injury woes, but coming off of being the Premier League Player of the Season, he's been very underwhelming this year. And then at the Euros was.
It's got to be, man. Come on, let's be real.
Really
It should have been Cole Palmer, man. Cole Palmer all the way. Like, I don't care. It should have been.
I get what you're saying as like a Chelsea fan or relating to Dimitri.
Chelsea fan. Dimitri's a Chelsea fan.
Yeah.
And I would even say Cole Palmer over Foden all day. When you carry a Chelsea side, this is not even like close to the Chelsea side that we've kind of seen, like when they actually got to decent, quite good form. No, that was a bad Chelsea side under Pochettino, and you saw what he was able to do with that team. Foden obviously has some Pep system plus Man City plus all the players around him. I mean, it was quite obvious for me that it should have been Cole, but it is what it is. Anyway,
he got his English Player of the Year though as well, so.
That's true. Yeah, I guess it's nice to have
that one could have went to him, but
you're talking because if you're talking about last season, I'll just speak since I'm a Chelsea fan. Definitely last season, Foden deserved PFA and all that.
He was unreal.
Yes, I think. Sorry, I know that gets you stuff now, but look at the present right now. Look, Palmer has a better trajectory. I think even not even counting Chelsea bias, it's kind of obvious he has a better trajectory. Also, I feel Foden was very. Not Foden. Palmer was extremely neglected in the Euros. Southgate.
Yeah, every time he went in, there was always something he did.
Yeah, it was the final, right? He scored these goals.
It was always a play that happened from.
Yeah.
And the final, of course, scored.
Yeah, but those are just some points that it's good to talk about and bring up. But sorry, Stefano, I don't want to keep on stalling, but we're going to move on to the last game we're going to discuss today. Juventus versus PSV. Man, Juventus get eliminated. Another Italian team that joins this trend of just Italian teams performing poorly in the Champions League this season. PSV winning 4-3 on aggregate, winning the second leg 3-1. Man, I'll just go through what happened in the game first, because it was watching with Stefano, watching with another friend of ours who's a Juventus fan. First half of the game was extremely boring. And to give credit to Juventus in the first half, I think it was boring, but they were trying to be defensively compact. They were trying to play the game out, but something in the second half, PSV started off really fiery. Maybe some tactics from the manager, good halftime talk, but also the fans, the passionate fans at the Philips Stadion in Eindhoven probably helped a lot. And in the 53rd minute, you get a Perisic goal from quote unquote from Stefano, half retired Perisic.
That wasn't me. No, I didn't say
you said that.
I said a quote from another person saying.
Okay.
I just saw it on a comment of
it's not on Twitter.
The most underrated players.
That's what it was. Oh, I probably would agree with that. But again, Perisic, I still stand by what Dimitri just said. Half retired, he pretty much is half retired.
Well, right now he's at the end of his
career.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
Very impressive.
it is, but
yeah, but no,
right now.
But speaking of impressive career, he definitely
should not have been doing this against kind of a Juve that's younger, should have pace, should be able to defend. It's kind of a slower kind of a player. I mean, he's not slow, but you get the point. It's like you should be able to deal with him. But
yeah,
in general, it's a shoulda, coulda, woulda situation.
Yeah,
for
no,
Juventus
that
here.
was
Obviously, they have planned on getting eliminated.
That's definitely, we're going to talk about that a lot for this game. But Juventus do respond with a Timothy Weah volley in the 63rd minute. Stefano thinks it's the UCL goal of the season.
Goal of the season?
Why are you laughing? Okay, it's the Champions League goal of the season. What are you gonna?
Okay. Please explain.
If anybody will like say argue against that, the only one I would say you could say is the goal of the season is the Lookman goal against Real Madrid, right? That one was. I've said that was like excellent goal as well, but
I'm gonna rack my brain here for the goals of the season. I haven't really put that much thought into it for the Champions League.
But like this one is ridiculous though, because it's a 63rd minute. It's from far out. Most players totally miss it or just go all power and can't get it on net. The accuracy of the volley, outside the box, and the timing of which the goal was needed, bottom left bin. Like, I mean, what more can you ask for a finish? And to top it all off, Weah is not even like he's not like a traditional winger. At least in this case, he wasn't played as a traditional winger. He was I believe it was a right back. So I mean, it's kind of like a Federico Valverde type of screamer goal, but then now it's in Champions League. So that's what I mean. Like I think this is a goal of the season territory for Champions League in particular. The only one I would say you might have an argument with me about is the Lookman one against Real Madrid, because just the scenario in which it happened and how amazing the goal was.
All I want to say is that because of that Timothy Weah goal, regardless of what you think of it, Juventus basically went up to 3-2 on aggregate, and honestly, they could have held it out. They should, given the experience, they should have been able to keep the score at 3-2, kind of sort out their lines, be tight and compact, stay as a unit, don't let PSV outpass them or anything like that. Basically. But in the 73rd minute, it just went all wrong for them. Stefano, where do you think it went all wrong? You blame Gatti, right? You said he was messing up a lot.
Yeah, Federico Gatti does. Well, I just kind of preface here. Yeah, Federico Gatti does not have that much experience as a center, as center back in Champions League. So I don't know how much you can blame him, but again, 2 goals you can absolutely say Federico Gatti should have done better in. There was just, I think the Luke de Jong one, right? Where against Luke de Jong, should have got touched to that. Should have got touched to that for sure. And then there was the first goal, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, definitely Gatti should have done better there. But again, how much can you blame him with the inexperience in Champions League? I have to say this though. Okay, so with defenders in particular, I always have this like particular thing with defenders. They have to be experienced in Champions League. I don't want to play an academy, like a player that hasn't played in the Champions League often or for many seasons, and then take that risk that they make that mistake due to pressure in a Champions League game that we need to win.
Not everyone's Cubarsio or Raul Asensio, right?
That's true.
But again, if that's for example, let's say no, I'm not even joking about what I'm about to say here. Like I know we saw Chiellini in the stands. What is he? 39, right? Close to 40. But if you put him on the pitch, you would not be making Gatti's mistakes. I'm not joking with that take. I don't care. Giorgio Chiellini could probably have done better if he got subbed onto the pitch from the stands. Subbed onto the pitch for Federico Gatti than Gatti did today. Mainly because, again, like of that Champions League experience. Champions League is so different to league play. You really have to have that at least a minimum experience with high pressure situations as a defender. Defender in particular. Maybe if you're a winger, whatever, right? It's a little bit different story, but defense it wins you games.
No, attack wins you games, defense wins you titles.
I would say defense is wins you also games too.
It does. Defense is
a solid defense. Like again, there's no question in my mind we lost this game due to defensive fragility and anxiety. They were definitely like Juventus was anxious in this game. There's no question about it. The Juventus was very anxious in this game defensively. They didn't hold on to the ball properly. You saw the passes in the midfield from wingers and stuff like that. They're totally off past power wise, right? For holding on to possession and all that. Like there was just so much anxiety for Juventus to perform, and I did also say that Juventus is a very young squad, so maybe that's also why they had anxiety as well. In this
also, Thiago Motta too. I don't think
Thiago Motta as well. Just getting into his coaching career for Champions League in particular. I mean, yeah, he obviously won the Champions League with Inter as a player, but again, coaching, obviously is slightly different. But yeah, overall inexperience from Juventus in Champions League led to PSV just completely toppling them and having the more confident play during this game,
especially in extra time. Like Juventus were nowhere. Yeah, they had nothing. PSV could have scored 2, maybe 3 goals in extra time. I mean, the only chance that
amazing.
Gregorio saved them for sure. The only chance that Juve had was the one that Vlahovic hit the post, the woodwork, but still that would have been in vain, probably because PSV would have found a way to score them if it weren't for Gregorio. But that's all I can say. Also, Noah Lang, I would definitely say is the man of the match for PSV. He was the glue in attack, and he just set up so many great opportunities. And PSV just knew what they were doing, and Juventus were totally they didn't know how to deal with him. And back to Motta in extra time, literally in the last 5 minutes, he was frozen. Like he had this confused facial. He was a statue. He was frozen, didn't know what to do, and that just shows he's just inexperienced in Champions League. We were talking about Company. Oh, he's not experienced in Champions League. This is more applicable to Motta. It's very evident, right now, for Motta that he's not ready. We're speculating with Company in the future, but with Motta right now for Juventus, he's not ready. So yeah, what are your thoughts on this whole game, Tristan and Daniel?
Too. Huh? When you look at Bayern versus Juve here, I feel that Company, he barely squeaked by a Celtic team that obviously Alistair Johnston. We forgot to talk on him, but he was absolutely incredible. But when you just barely squeak by a team like Celtic, it certainly gives me, at least me personally, pause when he's going up against better competition, especially if that's going to be Atletico Madrid or Leverkusen.
For sure. Yeah. What are your thoughts on just
I thought that. I thought obviously, Juve didn't play well. I thought Motta didn't set up the team right, but I think that we have to give more credit to PSV. I think after halftime, they were a completely different team.
Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm gonna make a hot take eventually,
especially in the last.
Get ready.
Especially in the last minutes, even of regulation, they were just forcing the action every time. They were attacking time and time and time again, and they could have won the game in extra time. They actually got pretty unlucky, and
I would agree.
They were actually playing pretty silky football, which really was pleasing to see as a neutral. And in extra time, I thought they got what they deserved. But again, with Juve, you look at how they're doing overall, and it's just obviously in the Serie A, they were unbeaten in all competitions not too long ago. They were unbeaten, but it just seemed like they were just playing very uninspiring uninspiring football. And then with the acquisition of Kolo Muani, I thought he was doing really well in the last few games, but in this game he wasn't great. Wasn't his usual self, I'd say.
Yeah, and me and Dimitri have talked about this, given this criticism kind of Kolo Muani. Yeah, he can be good in domestic games. I'll just say in the given league, but again, he's always had this, at least for how me and I'm pretty sure you see it the same way with Kolo Muani, right? In Champions League games, I'm sorry, I just have not seen him consistently scoring, or at least consistently showcasing the same kind of form that he shows in league. And I definitely would say Kolmani didn't perform up to the level where he needed to be. And I actually saw a take. People said that in 30 minutes, Vlahovic outdid Kolmani in 90. I agree with that. I don't care.
Probably.
I agree with that, man. Vlahovic had a better chances, in 30 minutes. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Did you want to say anything about Kolmani, Tristan?
No. I was just thinking about his World Cup final performance. But yeah, I would agree that Dusan Vlahovic had a better performance than Kolmani for sure.
No, that's for sure. Well, now
I'm gonna say one more thing.
Oh yeah, you want to say one more thing? Okay, about that.
So, in regards to PSV, I said this on the live stream. I'm not gonna take this back because this is just true. PSV is not that good. PSV is not that good, man. I don't care. They're not. They really are.
But Juve that good?
No, that's what I mean. Juve were so bad that we made I wouldn't say average. I would say decent.
For their standards, it was a really good performance, though. Come on.
Sure.
They played very.
But that's one performance, though. Like when you're talking about the whole picture, PSV really is a decent squad at best. Celtic's better. I don't care. Celtic, when it comes to tactics, toppling, kind of maybe creating an upset, just tactically speaking, not because the other team is playing bad. They can do it, Celtic, just based off their tactics alone and all that. Whereas PSV, they just burst a really bad Juve, probably the worst Juve performance we've seen this whole entire season. And then they make PSV a decent team, look amazing. Yes, they're playing. I get the silky football thing, passing and all that, but I'm sorry, they're going against Inter, Arsenal. Yeah, they're getting very easily smashed by Arsenal and or Inter.
I don't know.
Yeah, see? Arsenal?
Of course.
Arsenal in Europe, yeah.
It doesn't matter Arsenal in Europe, though. It doesn't matter because PSV is so average. They're decent. They're at best, they're decent. And if they have a nice game, any team can have a nice game. It doesn't really affect their overall. Again, Arsenal would still beat them, I think, because Arsenal just have way more talent and they're just set up much better. And of course, I mean, I know Opta, maybe we don't want to believe in Opta out this thing, but they do see them as a finalist, so you have to kind of take that into consideration too. Arsenal, right?
I mean, so I get where you're coming from with that though, because you could do the same sort of thing with Club Brugge, where it's obviously against bigger clubs, not Arsenal, but just bigger clubs in general.
Club Brugge is better. No, Club Brugge is better than PSV. No, man.
With that being said, though, aside from that, I feel like they're not going to have much luck deeper into the competition.
Sure.
Just given the club that they are, but I still don't think, with Club Brugge and PSV, that these performances could be anything could be taken away from that because they both perform very well.
No, for sure. Yeah, I think it just PSV, even Club Brugge too. Who are they versing against? Club Brugge.
Club Brugge, yeah. If you're looking at the bracket, Club Brugge are either going against Lille or Aston Villa.
Okay, so that's a little bit different story. If it's a different, maybe if they actually get the Arsenal, if they had the Arsenal Inter thing, maybe they wouldn't go through that. But PSV definitely, I don't see them going through Inter or Arsenal even.
Didn't Juve beat Inter, or am I tripping recently?
That was
Juve did beat Inter. That's why people were questioning, why did Juve play very good football, defensive, attacking, but still having that attacking prowess against Inter, toppling them, when Inter should have probably smashed Juve, you would probably even say. And then they go to PSV Stadium or whatever, and then they go and completely have the complete opposite performance to that Inter one. So I don't know. I just, again, that PSV, I've always said that they have some interesting things, but again, at best, they can do the best performance they can do was against Juve. There's no better. They can't perform better than that game that they have. That's all I'm gonna say. With PSV.
I think at the end of the day, Juve just need to look at where what are the inconsistencies of them, how to be more inconsistent, and that's the main thing. Yeah. Juve got to be more consistent in the future because that'll be their only chance of progressing further in the Champions League. I personally think that in terms of Juventus in the Champions League, they have never been back since that round of 16 loss against Porto in 2021. That was Ronaldo's last season there. Gianluigi Buffon's last season there. I feel like they've never bounced back after that. So yeah, it's definitely, they'll need to figure things out, because if this inconsistency in the Champions League continues dragging out for more years, it's just going to get harder for them to get back to an elite level in Europe's top competition. That's all I got to add.
There's one thing that we did talk about, which is Malta after the game, and I don't know if you remember the quote they said. Basically, like he said he had no regrets about the game. What do you think of that? Like,
oh yeah,
and then like how Malta sits now with this. Like, do you think it's obviously sacking, or they're going to think about it, or it's
Oh, you're asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking.
Okay.
I'm asking everybody. I'm asking everybody.
I think Malta should have taken more accountability. I don't know why he's trying to pretend that he has no responsibility in Juventus's exit. He's definitely at least a part of the reason why they're out. And yeah, just take more responsibility. That's what you got to do if you're a manager at that level. You sometimes got to take the criticism. But when it comes to that criticism, you construct it in a way to build a better team in future seasons. So I think Motta, the sooner he takes accountability, the higher chance he has of staying at Juventus in the near future, and the higher chance he just has of doing better with the team. But given how he's acting now and responding, I could see him departing the club, honestly. Do you have any opinion, Daniel or Tristan, on Motta?
Yeah, I think Juve should move on from Motta. I mean, I think
I agree.
Even domestically, I think being 10 points behind Napoli, 10 points behind the league leaders, I think for a stature of Juventus, of a club as big as Juve, I don't think it should be like that. And their performances in the Champions League and in the league have been very subpar, and he hasn't gotten the best out of his players. You look at Yildiz. I think under a good manager he would thrive, and he could really reach that next level. I think he has a lot of potential, and they definitely do have some good players in the squad. But I just think that the manager needs to leave. I mean, it was a mistake getting such an inexperienced manager with literally no experience. So
in top play in particular, right? I think Malta had probably, if I remember correctly, 3 clubs prior to Juve. Obviously Bologna, and then there was 2 other clubs or something like that. But when it comes to club level, he actually isn't even that experienced on that front as well. But obviously, Champions League, you're absolutely right as well too. From that point of view.
Yeah, for Malta's managerial career, it's all been Italian clubs. So first was Genoa, then was Spezia. That's why all the Juve fans are saying go back to Spezia. And then Bologna for 2 seasons. Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll have to see what the future holds for Malta and Juventus. But for now, all we can say is that Juventus crashed out earlier than they should. And good luck to PSV. Good luck to all the teams that have advanced to the round of 16. The Champions League round of 16 draw will take place on the 21st of February, tomorrow. So all of you who are listening, make sure you keep tuned to that. It'll be very interesting to see how the round of 16 draws will look. And all I can say is for now, thank you so much, Tristan and Daniel, for joining us for this podcast episode. We really appreciate your input. Thank you. And that's all we have for today. Keep tuned. We will be posting on our Old Big Ears podcast Instagram page all the round of 16 draws. Make sure you follow our podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow our Instagram. We really appreciate any comments on how we can do better. And in the future, anyone who's listening to the podcast, if you want to be part of our episodes, feel free to DM us or contact our email. Thank you so much. And that's it for today. Thank you. We're out.